Good morning. Welcome. I am so very, very excited to be here today with Rogers Healy. You all have heard all about our promo for Rogers Healy and Associates, the owner and founder of that wonderful company that just was in one more time the 100 top businesses up and coming in the DFW area.
Yeah.
And a graduate of SMU, the Cox Business School, sent him a wonderful letter congratulating him on receiving it one more time. So with all of the information we've sent out, Rogers, we have probably about 800, 900 people watching today.
Hey, friends.
They are all over the state of Texas, if not other places. And with your reputation for doing what every person that has come through the doors of Champion School of Real Estate has hoped to do, and that is launch a successful career. I am so excited to have you here today to pick your brain and to give those wonderful words of wisdom, advice, motivational ideas to people to bring their business to the next level. And for those that are brand new that are with us, most definitely how you got started and how you got to be to where you are today. So welcome all of our wonderful Champion School of Real Estate students, agents, and friends. And we're going to just jump right in. So by jumping right in, I'm going to ask the first question.
Let's go.
That I'm sure everybody's wondering. They're thinking, oh, she's going to wait till the very end to ask this question.
Yeah, we're coming in hot, you guys. Okay. Get ready. Yeah.
How did you manage to get the amazing gig of selling real estate to famous people?
Oh, man. So let me lead by saying I've done this for a very, very long time. This is my 16th year in the business. And there's really not a secret formula or a secret answer to working with that type of demographic. But for me, the short answer is just hustle. And I learned early on in this business that the one thing that most high profile, successful real estate people, realtors have in common is that they had done it for a long time. And for me, I'm just an impatient person by trade. And so I had to find my way to get to that niche of clientele quicker than my competition. So yeah, it was about getting doors open and about learning how to talk to people and about failing and falling on my face a million times. But the short answer is just having hustle and grit, and you throw in some ignorance in there, and you've got a pretty good list of ingredients for getting somewhere quicker than the average person.
So you weren't born a real estate agent. You had background before that.
Right.
Is there any part of your background before you came into real estate as a full-time agent that helped you get started?
So I was a very successful actor in Hollywood. For you guys that might recognize me, you might know me as an extra in multiple movies, and I was also on multiple off Broadway plays. But no, I lived in LA for a while, and as a kid, I always wanted to either be a sports broadcaster or an actor. And for me, John Cusack movies just kind of tugged at my heart differently. And then watching the sports broadcasters on ESPN, it just was something that I thought I could do. And then as I got older and a little bit more mature, which I use that term very lightly still to this day, research proved that working for ESPN wasn't probably the path I was going to take, because I didn't want to live in Fargo and work the ranks that way. So I moved to LA, and I went out there on a Wednesday to think about it, and by Friday I was living there. And I think out there, and I know out there, I learned how to network and how to hustle and how to make a dime go as far as possible. But I kind of got into that world pretty quickly, and then I got out even quicker. And
well, did you know someone that was in real estate? Was there a defining moment where you thought, maybe I could be a real estate agent?
No, honestly, no. So I grew up, my dad's a salesperson. He sells life insurance, and
that helps.
It definitely helps, but I still don't really know what they mean, honestly. But I found my way, just really God placed it in my life randomly, and I went to college in Dallas at SMU, and there's a ton of kids there that were from out of town, out of state, out of the country, and I was kind of the liaison before real estate, just in helping them find places to live. And then when I found out you could get paid to do that, I was like, well, this could be easy, which it's not. So yeah, it just was kind of a long, windy, broken road, but it led me to it.
We suggest that to a lot of people that are in college, knowing that so many people need apartments and temporary housing.
Right.
And we do have, obviously, especially in College Station, Austin, a lot of licensees that do that.
Oh yeah.
Brings in a lot of extra money.
That was my background. But it's fun. And, you know, at the end of the day, we all do the same thing. It's just a matter of what makes the way you do it different. And for me, I was just, you know, I try to be relatable and try to read them. And I think people that are good at sales, the people that are best at sales are, you know, just wanted to find a place to live, and I would do that. And then sometimes we would become friends.
Well, your sense of humor definitely serves you well.
Yeah.
I know you tried a little bit at comedy way back, maybe.
I think I still do. Yeah.
I think so too, because I was talking with him earlier this morning and I said, okay, I'm going to just jump right in and ask the question everybody wants to know. And before I could say anything, what did you say?
Why am I still single? I thought we were going to lead with that. And I thought that that's what this was a dating show. And I got here, and I guess it's real estate.
Surprise.
Surprise.
So yes, the sense of humor definitely helps a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And I think in this business, you got to find a way to always keep it moving and to find humor in everything. And the longer you do it, whether you're running your own company, whether you're brand new to this business, or you just are kind of trying to find your way, laughter, honestly, is the best medicine. And, you know, this business can get you down, but if you find a way to laugh through it, it seems to work.
And you just think, and we tell people in our marketing classes, especially Powerhouse Marketing, all different techniques that we know work over the years. And if you're going to spend all day with someone in a car, it's nice to be with someone that does have a sense of humor, someone that just doesn't take everything so seriously.
Yeah.
And most definitely, maybe not taking ourselves so seriously is a good direction to go.
Yeah, and then sometimes you're in the same car and then they decide to go and take another car, which means they probably don't like your sense of humor. So yeah, no, it's definitely, I think it's definitely important in sales and business to find a way to connect with somebody. And for me, it's normally with my humor.
That's really funny when you said when they get in another car, because that has come up by so many agents and brokers, and they say, you know, what does it mean when the second day they say, oh, I think I'll drive myself?
Yeah.
And probably means you're not that great of a driver.
Or they don't like my music.
Right.
Or there's like weird smells. Yeah.
You just say, oh, okay, well, fine, I'll be the leader, and or can I jump in with you?
Right.
And I'm happy to ride with you in the back seat or wherever.
Yeah. As long as you make sure you get that buyer tenant rep signed, you're good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, my dad, he retired from selling real estate at 87 years old.
Jeez.
And his retirement cue was when a couple came in and they said, oh, basically, are you still in real estate? And he said, yes. And I've been in it for umpteen years. And he went to show them the property and they said, oh, thank you, sir, we'll drive. And my dad said, you know, I think it's time I retire.
Hang it up.
And maybe it was, but that was his little cue.
Yeah. I haven't had that happen yet. But.
So for our people that are brand new getting their license, we have a number of prep people watching today. Tell us, I know you're one of our champions and we're so thrilled about that. We're so honored that you got our license with us. Tell us about your experience, getting your hours, getting your license. How was that for you?
You know, it was enjoyable, and I honestly wouldn't be sitting here. Literally, wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Champions. But I don't know what I'd be doing if I wouldn't have gone through the process with Champions. I was young, I was ignorant, and this was something that, you know, I thought I could do, but I didn't realize what the road ahead of me, you know, had laid out. But it was great, and I learned a lot, but I wasn't mentally mature enough to really embrace what was given to me. And I'm the kind of guy, pardon me, that, you know, I teach my office in DFW, that I kind of am a baptism by fire guy, which like the interpretation is as, well, he screwed up a bunch and probably learned, which you're correct. But it was great, you know, and I've been loyal to you guys now for almost 20 years, which is insane. And I learned a ton, and, you know, my road was a little bit rockier, and it's 100% because of me and my approach. But yeah, it was fun. I just took the long way.
Well, I wanted our students to know, we look at this wonderful, successful gentleman here, this wonderful, successful broker. He has his own company. But when I was getting to know him and talking with him, he said, well, okay, I didn't pass the national test the first time. And I said, I can't even tell you, and I wouldn't tell you, all the brokers out there that have to take their test a couple of times. Obviously, we know the prep helps, but that's not the point. The point is, as well, he was saying, and, you know, to take the prep and all that, he really was not the success he is today. And in order to get started, everybody sort of starts the same way. It's you have a goal, you have a vision, and then you find a way to get there. So Rogers was even saying, you know, he was waiting tables in order to help pay for his classes.
Yeah.
And so it's not like everyone just, oh, you go into the business and you're successful. And I'm sure along the way, building your success, I know you were with a couple of franchise companies before you started your own company.
Right.
But I think what really bothers new agents and experienced agents is you're having a great month, you're having a great week or two, and then everything falls apart.
Right.
Do you have any of those type experiences that you draw from?
Yeah. I mean, every day. And I think something I've learned, you know, I'm 37 years old, so I'm not ancient, but I'm not a kid anymore. And when I was climbing with like my brokerage, and I was 26 years old when I started my company, literally had no clue what I was doing.
Pretty young.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to have fun, and I thought that I could just figure it out along the way, which I'm still figuring it out. But the thing that I've learned is, for a long time, people would always congratulate me on like making it, which like I'm never going to make it, right? And in my mind, in my head, like I kind of lived in fear. And I realized now the hardest thing to do in business, whether you're an individual salesperson, a broker, an owner, a team leader, whatever, is to sustain it and to keep it. And that's stuff that I've learned the hard way is, you know, no matter what anyone tells you, like you always are going to have to evolve and be agile. And that has been the hardest thing for me. Like you were saying, like I waited tables like after I got my real estate license. And you know, I wasn't financially stable for a couple of years. And I think that also gave me just kind of the wherewithal and the mental bandwidth to always essentially be concerned about what's going to happen next. But it is hard. You make a big paycheck as a realtor, and then you're like, well, I need another paycheck.
I need another paycheck.
Yeah. So you just learn how to kind of balance it. And I'm a spinning plates guy. And if I always know I got something going, then it gives me a reason to wake up and never stop.
Always making sure that there's something happening in your pipeline so that it takes a bit of the fear out of the next transaction. Where is it coming from? So when you started out as an agent, how long did you work by yourself before you decided it was time to bring in either a buyer's agent or to put a team together?
I'll answer by telling you not long enough. Or in my mind, at the beginning of my career, my drive was honestly my ego. And I was telling Rita that, and when I found real estate, kind of my story is I was just a perpetual quitter. I mean, like I lived in LA. I was kidding. I wasn't a successful actor. I did it for 10 months. I was a sandwich artist. I was a video game consultant. I think I worked at like a financial institution. I was an advertising major.
You did what you needed to do.
Yeah, but like I would quit. And so in this business, I had to go and prove that I could be successful. And so for me, I would do things with the wrong motives, not like unethical or anything, but I just wanted to prove to the world that I could do something that, you know, was difficult. And so right when I got momentum built, I hired 2 people to work on the Rogers Healy real estate group. And if y'all are watching, you're probably not in real estate anymore because of me, so I'm sorry.
The Rogers Healy real estate group.
Right?
Okay,
And like,
good.
who knows?
All right.
And I had no idea what I was doing.
Good name.
Yeah, it was very original. but I didn't know what I was doing. I was 23, and I just thought by waking up early and having a big ego that I could figure it out. But I think the hardest thing to figure out, which you have to figure out on your own, is how to scale. And for me, just because I was busy didn't mean I needed people to work for me. And I think that's a question that I get a lot from my agents is, we ramp them up, we train them, and they get hyper trained really quickly. But just because you're busy doesn't mean you need a staff. And so my short answer is I started it pretty quickly. And then pretty quickly thereafter, they were both like, hey, you're really fun, but this is not a fit. I was like, don't blame me. So honestly, up until probably 2 years ago, I was still producing. But 2 years ago, a guy named Kyle Bain and a girl named Ronnie Lind and Jeff Pollock from my office just started helping me with my own personal stuff. And then I learned how to delegate, which I think is a really hard task for a leader and a micromanager and a salesperson. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it just took time. But if people can go and not let ego drive their reasoning, there's probably going to be a lot quicker success than I experienced. But again, baptism by fire, and I think I'm a better leader for it.
So the ongoing question that all of our new people always want to know, and they are consistently asking us at Champion School of Real Estate while they're in class, is a question that you get all the time as a broker owner. The new person comes in, sits down, talks with you, and says, how do I find business? How do I find prospects?
Right.
So what are your tips, and what did you personally do in order to get business?
Show up. And this business, like in DFW alone, I think there's almost 30,000 realtors, and 29,000 of them went to Champions, which is great. But
we missed 1,000?
Maybe they were homeschooled. It's okay. They can always come back. And we do CE too. Yeah, I learned early on that showing up was really what I had to do. And I also think that for me, this business there's a lot of people done it for a long time, and they do it the way that they've done it because that's the way that they've done it, right? But for me, if I could go and infuse my personality and really me into my business, then it would be the law of attraction. It would bring the people that would appreciate it to me. So for me, it was putting in time and hours. And we were talking before we started, I still work probably 80, 90 hours a week, but the definition of work has changed, right? Back in the day, working was like showing properties, writing contracts. Now it's building my brand, sustaining my brand, and training my people. But it's tough. And, this business, the beauty of it is it's always changing. And the people I think that suffer in this business are the ones that aren't willing to change with it. So for me, it's just a matter of putting in time and learning, what I have to do to constantly better myself and remain humble, which came the hard way too. But yeah.
So you are available and working 7 days a week. You are available when your prospects need you.
Right.
And then when you do take time off, it's because you don't have something on your calendar. And then what is your way of taking time off and relaxing? What do you like to do?
That's a hard thing. And I think that when you start making money in this business and you start finding success, it's hard to check out. It was hard for me to check out. And it was hard for me to go and turn down literally an apartment showing. The only thing I had commitment to, I'd go to church every Sunday. And I would go to church at the early service. And that way I knew I could go and use my Supra to get in at 9 a.m. Yeah, but I mean, that I just forced myself to do it, which kind of led to a really good routine. But I think the word accessible is kind of loaded in this business. And I think I was so prideful in knowing that 24/7 I was reachable. This is before text message. And then text message came out. All of a sudden, I'm like bags under my eyes, and all night I'm just getting beep, 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 beep. So I had to find a way to check out. So for me, I do CrossFit every morning, really early, with guys from my office. And I work during the day. And then I get out of town every Friday. I had to physically force myself I didn't force myself to buy a farm. I bought a farm. And I get out of town. And for me to be physically removed from an office location, still working, just gets me ready to go back to work on Monday in my office location.
Exactly. Just getting away.
Yeah, and I'm extreme. Like some people are really good at like just turning their phone over. Like this is the longest I've gone without my cell phone in 25 years. So shaking.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
You can grab it and
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, for me, it's about being physically removed from the temptation of being in the office.
I think that's why agents do take trips, and we work hard and we put that trip on the calendar. because we know we can also build our business around it. But you really don't get a break unless you just take off, go to the beach, go to the mountains, go skiing, go to the ranch. Being away from the business is certainly a break. But I think what you're talking about is truly the reality of being in real estate. You have to be accessible.
Yeah.
And yet it does allow you as well, if you have something specifically on your calendar already that's important to you, and maybe that's the playoffs for your child's basketball game, then you work around that. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
But looks like you want to say something.
Well, I learned the hard way too, and not to interrupt you, but
no, I could tell.
There's a difference between a vacation and a trip, okay? And for me, I'm a guy that takes trips because trips can be canceled. And I learned early on that if you ever want to get busy in real estate, you know what you need to do?
Take a vacation.
You need to book a trip or a vacation. Southwest Airlines is amazing because you can go and get a refund like 10 minutes before the flight takes off. So I learned that, but something I've learned the hard way too is being accessible is great, but having layers is something I've always struggled with. And I'm involved in everything. But something we're working on right now in my company is trying to implement different people to where I can actually go and check out and enjoy it. Because a lot of times I'll go and be on vacation, and this is what I'm doing the whole time. And then you're international, all of a sudden, like each text message costs like 15 cents.
And that's not a rumor.
No.
Every agent will tell you, let them book a vacation.
Yeah.
And that buyer they've been in touch with for the last 6 months finally says they're coming to town. So then it's a mess. And
yeah. And the buyer doesn't care that you're taking a vacation.
No, they don't.
They want you there. And all of a sudden, trip canceled.
Yeah, yeah. So it's absolutely true. Our business is centered around pretty much the customer and when they are ready to do business. So when, in fact, you have agents, how many agents do you have in your office right
About
now?
250.
Okay. And as I was looking at them, and that's a pretty large office, really successful working office, when I looked at the pictures of people, you do have a diverse group of ages. Yeah. And how do you feel about sort of stereotypical thoughts on boomers want this type of property, they want you to sell to them a certain way. Millenniums want a different type of conversation from the agent. Do you feel that all of your agents in different age groups can pretty much sell to anybody? What is your personal feeling? Because you have a very diverse group.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to use the term chameleon, but you know, realtors, really, it's a popularity contest. The word popular does not necessarily mean well liked. I think it's well known. And the way that we train our agents, and obviously we've got a big shift coming up right now, baby boomers and with millennials, and those are going to be the two biggest audiences we're going to be dealing with for the next 10 or 15 years. But you work with who you like and who you trust. And for me, when I started out, I was the youngest one. I was 22 years old, full-time real estate, competing against really my parents' friends.
Amazing.
Yeah, but
scary.
Yeah, it's scary. But my thing that I learned early on is when I'd go to meet with like a prospect that were significantly older than me, they'd always tell me, "You're too young." And then I learned how to deflect and be like, "Well, I'm hungry." Like, and I'm like, "Well, my friend Jenny can go list this house." I was like, "Well, Jenny has 45 listings. I want to move out of my parents' house. Let me sell this house for you." So I think by learning that method, it gives me the ability to train my agents on just how to be a closer and how to sell to anybody. And again, a mistake I learned along the way is that not everybody wants to work for me and with me, which was hard. So yeah, the older I got and the wiser I got, the more I would just go and gravitate towards people that just, it was comfortable.
Well, I brought that question forward because it seems that in today's world, we have a number of millennials, Gen Y particularly, they graduate from college and they want to be their own boss. They are an entrepreneurial spirit, and yet that question comes up regularly. I know there are many of them right now watching that say, I am in my 20s, and that's what I loved about having you here today, is because it demonstrates truly success comes in all ages. We know that.
Yeah.
And they're going to get that question, and how to deflect it is, I'm hungry, and as you said, the other agent's very busy. Let's flip it around. What about the experienced agent that has to compete against the new person?
Yeah.
Because a lot of experienced agents, that's a little bit fearful if a new person is trying to move into their territory.
Yeah, and that's going to continue to happen. I just think there's different ways to go and close a deal. And for me, I was never the kind of guy that was going to go and lay out on a piece of on a desk like, here's all of my successes, right? It's like, you're going to click with me or you're not. And I think there's opportunities to close. There's opportunities to close a transaction in person, whether they know you're closing it or not. But at the same time, like, some people just, they gravitate towards a different type of person. And the mistake I've made, and one reason I'm single, is for a long time, my life revolved around like fixing people and convincing them. And that ended up being a waste of time. And I think when I kind of changed my approach and my mindset, it just brought to me, or whatever, I was introduced to deals and people and relationships that were healthy and give me the ability to breathe differently. But yeah, it's tough. And there are a lot of younger people getting into the business. But my thing with my company, and I appreciate you recognizing the diversity, but back in the day, it was like 5 people in college and me. We were young. And when I wanted to go and recruit people that were in different age brackets or different demographics, they would say, you're too young. And then I learned to say, it's like, we're not young, we're youthful. I think by doing that, that simple twist brought in people that could appreciate just a fun approach. And then in turn, they take that approach to their audience, and stuff just starts to happen like magic.
Most definitely, success comes in all different ages,
Right.
for sure. And last week I did my quarterly update, and I was saying, it seems like about 10 years ago, we had this huge focus on separating everybody by demographics and by age, and saying, here's how you need to talk to this age group, this age group, this age group. And we've gotten past that, and it truly is just what you're saying. It's about you, the person.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned a technique, you said, well, one thing you need to do is just show up.
Mm-hmm.
Be specific to our new people. What do you mean by you need to show up?
So literally, like, show up physically, which I know that sounds comical to a lot of people, but you got to get out of bed, you got to make your bed, and you got to show up to a place where you're going to be seen. But I think more importantly, it's showing up mentally. And for me, I was never a good student. I'm the champion. I was never a good student in school.
You made all A's at Champion School of Real Estate.
I have my certificates. For me, showing up until my career was like physically being in a seat. And then up until that point in my life, like I heard of the saying early on in college, which I wish I would have heard. It said, C's get degrees.
Oh.
So did D's.
Ooh,
But in my mind, my interpretation was like, if I can make friends with the teacher and by physically being there, I'm going to pass. But I wasn't learning. So for me, showing up is being mentally present as well. And I think just observing and paying attention and making use of all your time. And the beauty of this business is, like, you are always working no matter where you are. And you can come to a city for a day and a half and learn about their city and take that and be more intelligent than the person that specializes in one little area. So for me, it was just a mindset. And it was knowing that I can play the room and work the room by just going and having my head on a swivel and actually listening.
You did it well because you were in the 30, under 30, with NAR, which means in the entire nation, there were 30 top producers under the age of 30, and Rogers was in that group, which is no surprise. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a really cool honor. Almost like 10 years ago.
Well, a few years back.
Yeah, no, it was cool. That moment in my life was probably the pinnacle that was the top moment of my entire life when I got that. And it was really cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope somewhere in the byline it said graduate all A's
at
Champions School of Real Estate.
Yeah, and I think I had like a parted mullet and like my photo in there, like my hair was right here, and I was like, that's a good picture.
That's a good one.
No.
So this may sound trite, but I want to bring it up because we also hear this all the time, especially the instructors with students coming through the school, getting their license, getting the prep, and then managers ask us to make sure we hit it in our marketing classes. But first of all, we did not plan our blue jackets today.
We have good on-screen chemistry.
Looking at the camera, it looks pretty good there, but we didn't plan it.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, do you feel as though there is a dress code in real estate that helps you be successful? Or do you feel casual is okay? And because I can promise you 70% of the people watching today still have that curiosity.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion on it?
So the saying goes, dress for success, right? And I was telling Rita before we got started, one of the trainings I do with my agents, it's called "I'm a Realtor, Now What?" That's a question we get a lot. Is like, I passed my test.
I love it.
Right? Yeah, and for me, so I literally started. I'm a very routine person. I'm very OCD, and just I do the same thing almost every single day. And part of my day is literally putting on dress clothes. And I was telling her that I went through a phase about 3 years ago that for a year, and the market was great. For a year, I would wear jeans, Vans, and an untucked polo, and I was comfortable. And I was like, this is awesome. Owning a business is great. I can wear what I want. At the end of the year, I was like, that's weird. I had a terrible year. And there's some other stuff going on too, but
connection.
Yeah, connection is like you want to attract, the right kind of audience, the right type of clientele. So for me, the short of it, like the cheap version of my class is, if I'm wearing slacks that I got to go and pay $2 to get dry cleaned, a good ROI is a 3x. So I got to go make $6 today. And if I wear a shirt that's going to cost $1 to get dry cleaned, and a blazer, like if this is all going to cost me $20 to get dry cleaned, I need to go out and make $60 today. So I started doing that differently, and I kind of invested in, fashion and feeling professional, and it just changes me, right? There's guys in my office, like there's a guy named Selden, another one named Chasten, and they wear a suit and tie every day. And it's amazing, right? And they're just busy, and they're the ones that are up there longer than anybody. And I think it's in large part because in their mind, like, this is a superhero costume. And if I'm dressed like this, I cannot let myself down. Yeah.
Wow, that's a good way to think about
Yeah.
it. It's like our Joseph Owens that's here. I was telling Rogers when he was meeting our wonderful staff, Joseph is always dressed in a suit, often a vest, and he says, it's just how I want to go to work every day.
No, it makes sense. So, and you got to do it from the start, or you can change it, but you cannot waver. And I think that, like, casual Friday, the word casual is also relative. That doesn't mean yoga pants or shorts and a t-shirt, maybe jeans. But
that is a tough word to explain to people.
Yeah.
You have to show pictures and videos and PowerPoints to understand casual Friday.
And the one time I wear shorts on a Wednesday, everybody wears shorts. So yeah, you learn the hard way.
Yeah, it's tough. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about marketing. When I go to your website, I see marketing with personality. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
So a lot of real estate companies have a tagline, and I think when I first came out, mine, it was like this really weird logo. It was like, our passion is people. And then they're like, yeah. And I don't know if I was the only one to come up with that. So for me, Morgan Hale runs all of our marketing and PR, and her and our manager, Fran, we were sitting there a couple of years ago just trying to take the company to the next level. And they're like, what's the tagline? And I was like, I don't think we need one anymore. And then we just started thinking about what makes us unique, and it's our personality. So for us, our line is real estate with personality, which can be interpreted however you like. Our properties are unique, they have personality, but really it's my people and me. And it's stuff like this that just goes and encourages us to kind of zig when others are zagging. And it all starts with personality.
So do you mind telling us a little bit about your marketing campaign, what you like to use? I know Kimberly, our president, has mentioned that you have some wonderful digital signs and digital marketing. And by the way, he drinks like 6 of those.
Yeah, this is embarrassing. I told her, I was like, I'm going to have 10 of these in an hour.
I mean, everybody's going to be drinking water within, well, they probably have already started now.
Yeah, subliminal marketing. I work for Fiji. So we tried it all. And we have billboards all across DFW. And unfortunately for the people of DFW, it's got my face on it. But yeah, we tried everything. And for me, and all you guys that are brand new to real estate or newer, you couldn't enter at a better time in the industry, but also as far as marketing avenues are concerned. When I started out, the way that you market as a realtor back in 2001 was you had to spend money. You had to do magazines, you had to do newspapers and mailers, and like you can only wait tables so many hours a day, so I couldn't do that. And then MySpace came out, and I was like, MySpace. I was like, this is a pretty cool opportunity to leverage a network.
Smart.
Yeah, and then Facebook, and I was the first realtor in the country to do social media marketing, but I learned the hard way that that stuff works, and you see tangible results. And I think we live in a society where, like, you want instant gratification. Mm-hmm. but I had to couple it with traditional stuff too. So yeah, we've got traditional marketing, we've got billboards, digital billboards, magazines, and all sorts of stuff.
So you're doing the gambit.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you still do direct mail?
I do. We do.
We do too.
Yeah, and I think as people start to go and quit something, that's an opportunity to go heavy in it. And I think a lot of realtors.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think a lot of realtors, I can always tell when a realtor is either brand new or has no business, as they send a mailer out, and then all of a sudden they don't send another one. So you just got to do what what others aren't willing to do, and realize it's going to take a lot of time. Right.
You must have been the first, because most definitely we advertise on Facebook now, but to have taken it when MySpace was back there, I mean, that was really on the leading edge, I would think.
Yeah, and I think something about me, I'm shameless, and if it was going to get me in front of people and generate income, I was willing to do it as long as it was in my realm of ethics. And so, yeah, when Facebook came out, you could only have an account if you were a college student. And I was like, well, I'm not in college, but I can probably create a college email. So hello, SMU, I did this. So yeah, I did that. Started just adding college kids as friends, and then I'd help them find apartments and condos, and it led to something special.
Do you tell your new agents coming into the business a certain percentage for marketing that they might need to think about, or do you help them leverage off your own company marketing?
Yeah, there's strength in numbers, and the beauty of a hashtag. The hashtags have changed my business, have changed my brand, and have built brands of hundreds of people around me. I think that's very valuable, but you got to have money. You got to have money to make money. And in this business, that doesn't necessarily mean a mailer, but it means like taking somebody to lunch. And something I talk about when I visit the Champion School in Dallas is when you go to listing appointment, you get a listing, like you're spending money, right? So it's like, you got to have this stuff ready. But for me, I'm not a percentage guy. People have asked me like, how much do you spend? And I always tell them enough. But
wait, did you all catch that? The answer was enough.
Enough. And it's enough. And I think marketing budgets are healthy, but the problem with what we do is every single day, once you get there, someone's going to call you and hit you up to sponsor an event.
Exactly.
And like, you sponsored the event because you care about the event. You probably aren't going to get a huge return at the immediate time. But yeah, I've just learned to go and be open to opportunities. But if I feel something is right, I invest in it.
We tell our new people, most definitely get ready, because you are going to be asked to sponsor a lot of community events. And yet, as a new person, and as you mentioned a few minutes ago, showing up.
Yeah.
You may not be able to help with sponsoring the advertising materials, but you can certainly be a volunteer and show up.
Yeah.
And wear your name badge and let people know that you're in real estate.
And that you care. And a lot of people all over, they go to charity events, I think, for the wrong reason. Newsflash. And I think if you go there because you actually care about the charity, then eventually people are going to come to you and be like, hey, what's your name? Instead of you working the room trying to squeeze as much out of the fruit as possible.
No, that doesn't come across too well, does it? Sincerity is definitely a better direction.
Yeah, and it's hard to find, so be sincere.
How do you feel about virtual offices? They're really popular now. And especially, I hate to say it, but with Gen Y, Gen Z, it's like, we don't have to have an office. We can do everything virtually. How do you feel about that? Because I know you have a brick and mortar.
Yeah, I'm old school. And, I think I'm right on that cusp. I don't know what, I was born in 1980, and I heard something like I'm like some weird Gen.
We're Gen Y.
Yeah, but.
On the cusp, Gen Y, Gen X.
Yeah. I think I got to be in an office to work. Okay. And for me, if it works for you to have the virtual office, then great. But I think you're just missing out. Like for us, like we have great culture. Our office is just a really special place, and people genuinely love each other. But how can you learn something, in my opinion, how can you learn so much about so much on your own? Right. And I'm not a good self-taught person. I don't know how to play the guitar for a reason. But obviously it's happening.
That's a good example.
Yeah, it's happening. I think people they gravitate towards what makes sense to them, but they probably have a higher drop-off rate than the people that are actually around people that are grinding.
I think the idea of team is still really important.
Right.
And you get a team with a brick and mortar situation, but we're reading a lot about it, and I'm sure you can do a combination of that as well. But let's say I'm in your office and I'm a middle of the road producer. And there are a couple of things I want to go into in a few minutes, and it's like rumors that aren't true.
Right.
And but one particular consistent thing that comes up is you have the bottom half that shows up and does nothing. You have the middle of the roader, and then you have the top third,
Right.
that seems to get all the business.
Right.
If I'm a middle of the road producer, do you have any tips or anything? What would you say to me do as my manager to help move me to the next level?
Yeah, so we do this kind of stuff, and for me, if it's a 1, 2, 3 theory, I think if you work for my company, you have potential to produce and make a lot of money and be at the top tier. But something I've learned, obviously, Exhibit A, is successful people love talking about themselves. And I think something that's really hard in sales, especially real estate, is for people that are in that middle tier to admit or to kind of realize that they're not at the top tier yet. So the first thing I would do is I would ask the people in the top tier, hey, how'd you do it? And I can guarantee you if they have a half a heart, they're going to give you something. But the second thing, too, just goes back to showing up. And I think that a lot of people are 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And a lot of people like me prior to real estate, the common denominator between every job that I quit is that it wasn't a career and I wasn't all in. So I think just going and refocusing and also trying things that you probably haven't put in an effort into. A guy named Mike from my office about a year ago sat down and told us something. It was awesome. He is a coach, and his coach had him lay out all these things that like are part of his business. And it would be like on a scale of 1 to 10, like how good are you at cold calling, open houses, mailers?
How do you personally feel about cold calling? Let me hit that.
I think it's great. I do it every day. And I think
How do you do it? What is your technique?
It does. I mean, like I'm random. I'll call it for sale by owner. And I think the more you do it, the thicker your skin gets, the more you get used to like the people just hanging up the phone. But yeah, I think it's great. I think you got a cold call, but cold calling to me is not just on the phone. It's in person. And I think that if you can go and enhance your networking skills and talk to people and learn how to look them in the eyes and actually shake their hand, it makes you a better salesperson. So yeah, but long story short, this deal he was saying is Mike had multiple things that on a scale of 1 to 10, there was like 2 of them he was a 2 at, and 4 of them he was a 7 at. His focus soon shifted to get those 7s to a 10 instead of those 2s to a 4. And I think that's something that people in that middle tier can work on, is going and really just enhancing the stuff that they're good at, getting great, and maybe push the stuff that they're just terrible at to the side.
Exactly.
But cold calling is great. Cold calling has been a huge part of my business and people who work for me as well.
And I'm really happy you said that, because when we're teaching in our 30 Days to Success, which is a great book, yes, I did write it, to throw that in there.
There you go. You guys should buy this book
talk
immediately.
About ourselves. But on the 30 Days to Success, it's what to do after I have my license, and you can start with it any time. But in that, I most definitely mention a for sale by owner is somebody that's already trying to sell their home.
Yeah.
They need help. Not too long ago, I had some other superstars here with top RE/MAX office in Texas, and Ruben Villarreal has been in the business for a long, long time. Said still, every single day, he calls contacts for sale by owners.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of experienced agents move away from that. I mean, they're all different things we do for business. But it's interesting to know that you are still old school in a lot of different ways on getting business.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just basic training.
Yeah, you got to lead by example. I think it's hard for people that are in a position like me. I don't play golf. I don't check out. I'm still in the game. I got to be. And I wouldn't be able to go look up to me and trust me and take my guidance if I wasn't a student of the game that I coach. So yeah, you got to do it. And I think that this business too, like you find different ways to have fun and you find different ways to make your pitch. And every single day I'm perfecting what I do, how I do it, and how I tell people, what makes me different. And I think cold calling is an incredible way to go do that.
Did you hear that very annoying noise?
What?
We have at our studios the bayou behind us. and they're still bringing airboats through.
You're not kidding me.
I'm not.
Oh, wow.
So that would be Parks and Life on an airboat that came through to check the bayou. So,
Oh, wow. Cool.
And that bayou was quite deep during
Wow.
the hurricane.
And in case you guys are wondering, it is very humid here today. We've got a sweat towel keeping us pretty.
We are talking and listening to this noise in the background, so I thought, I want you all to know that's what happens occasionally. But there are the airboats that are still coming through, and fortunately, they're not having to find anybody that needs to be rescued.
We're safe in Houston.
We're safe right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what about the bottom third? The bottom third, I'm brand new in your company or not brand new. I'm just not performing like I need to. How do you keep track of me so that I know that I'm not performing well? Do you invite me to come in and talk to you or your manager or a coach, or
can you guarantee that the bottom third is watching right now? I want you guys to listen to this.
Yes, they are all watching. Okay. Your entire bottom third is watching.
Hey guys. Everyone in my company has access to everyone else, and there's not favoritism up there. And back in the day, it was hard for me when I realized that my time was going to the people that were producing versus the others. And then I realized, well, they're showing up. Let's get them there. So it's tough, and I think that it's also tough when people realize that they let themselves down. They kind of, in my experience, they get embarrassed, which means they're less likely to show up. Okay. And all of a sudden, there's like this eventual.
And they need to show up.
You got to show up, but I think just admitting fault or defeat is a really beautiful thing, and I think vulnerability in this business is something that you got to have in order to get from the 1 to the 2 to the 3 and to stay at the 3. But yeah, I mean, just showing up, and we train at our office like non-stop, and stuff is always accessible, and if it's not accessible, they let us know and we'll fix it or we'll add it. But yeah, it's hard, and I think this business could eat you up pretty quickly unless you go and just change your mindset.
Okay. And I'm sure you require that your agents set goals and review their goals and all of that.
Yeah, and fun fact about goals, if you write them down, you're more likely to achieve them. And if you write it on yellow, you're more likely to remember it.
There you go.
Yeah,
okay.
Old school.
And
yeah.
It does work. And again, it's just constantly reminding people who say, I have my goals, but my goals are up here. And yet we know for a fact that they're written down and you're able to really check them. It allows you to say, hey, great, I did that, I achieved that, and it moves you forward to the next element.
And something about goals, they shouldn't all be financial. And that was something I learned too at the beginning. My goals, literally, like from years 1 through like 8 or 9, was production. And then I started setting goals like, hey, like take a day off, or like call your grandmother, or just like little bitty things. And all of a sudden I had this laundry list of things that just made me happier.
Perfect. Yes. Because helping people and calling your grandmother definitely makes you feel like a better person, and it makes you a better person.
Yeah, and it keeps you grounded. In this business too, like success is such a weird animal. And if you don't have anybody holding you accountable, and the number one person should be yourself, then it just kind of changes you.
Now, talking about holding yourself accountable, do you have a coach? Did you have a coach? How do you feel about coaches?
I have a dog named Coach. Literally, I'll lead with that. So all you ladies out there, you have to like dogs. I didn't have a coach. I was raised by a business coach, whether I knew it or not, and just seeing him organically lead our family and lead his company was a really invigorating thing.
And that was your dad?
Yes, ma'am. And he's not in real estate. But yeah, I consider myself a coach to my people. I think sometimes I'm more of a motivational speaker unintentionally, just because I know what it's like to be on every different level of where they're at, and I think sometimes it's hard because they don't really realize that, hey, I was there one day too. But yeah, we coach. I didn't have a coach. I've got a business coach now helping me with just bigger decisions. But if you guys can have access to someone that genuinely wants to help you because of their heart, not necessarily because of their paybook or their checkbook, then I think that's a special thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's go back to just a little more basic information for new people that are sitting in the classroom right now. And knowing when we walk into the classroom there are always consistent questions that come up every single time. They're great questions, and questions such as, starting out, how much money should I expect to make per year? That is a crazy loaded question.
Yeah.
And I know what my answer is, because it's standard, but it's honest and truthful.
What's the answer?
My answer is, it's totally up to you.
Ooh, I thought you were going to say like a number. I was like,
No.
I made nothing.
No, I actually took it is the truthful, honest way out, because I'm sorry, we just got a message sent over to us and I was distracted for a minute.
It says Timmy has fell in a well. We need to send Lassie quick. Just kidding. Timmy's fine.
Okay, what we were just reminded of is we're going into the last 10 minutes of the first hour. And yes, we are going to answer these questions that have come from students on chat. But I have a couple of questions first that will lead into it. And I love the chat questions that are coming in. But when I walk into a classroom, new people having families to provide for, obviously we all have our bills and need to provide for our loved ones. The question that's asked openly in the classroom, Rita, how much money can I expect to make my first year? And oh my goodness, that is such a personalized question. I'm going to go back to what Rogers has been saying. If you're an agent that shows up, you're ready for business, you're doing all of the things that we teach you at Champion School of Real Estate, but then take it to the next level, your company training, and you do it where you don't say, oh, I'm taking off Saturday, Sunday, but you do it, especially your first and second year, when you're needed, when that prospect needs you, you're available. If you're the agent that literally is doing what you get in your training class and sitting down, making sure that the goals and the financial plan you put together to know how many prospects that you need to meet every day, and you do all of those things that your trainer and champions tell you to do, you will make a living. But to say how much? I had Jennifer here in June, brand new agent. Her first year, she had 22 closed transactions.
Wow.
And when I interviewed her and said, Jennifer, my goodness, you're in Katy, Texas. She told everybody she was a housewife who had been at home 18 years. The kids left home,
Wow.
Went to school. Now she's in real estate. I said, what is your secret to success? And she said, being available.
Yeah.
Being available.
Yeah.
We're always looking for like that silver bullet. Oh, he did this, she did that, but it's being available.
Yeah. There's never, in my experience, there's not going to be one little trick. You're like, oh my God. It's like Seinfeld. Seinfeld was a good show because you're like, oh, that's happened to me. But it was never like this, whoa, right?
It's a normal day-to-day living.
And another thing too is I think something that I did, and I encourage people to do it, is I did a lot of leases. And I learned the cycle of real estate really quickly. Renters turn to buyers, buyers turn to sellers, sellers turn to buyers. All of a sudden, like, you're in. So for me, my mantra was always just to find a way to get in with the client as quick as possible. And if I was going to make $50 or $50,000, great, treat them the same. But eventually, like, you're working off referrals, which are going to complement the marketing. Excuse me, and you've got a career built.
And that's the key, is stay in it long enough where people know that you're believable, you're sincere.
Mm-hmm.
You do a really fine job for them, and then the referrals come in.
Right.
And I always tell, again, our new people, don't expect the first year to be the home run. Jennifer was the exception, not the rule. Can it be done? Yes. But at the end of your second year, it's like, what happened? All of a sudden, I have business now.
Right.
And it's because the people that you treated well and did a good job for are now referring you to other people.
Yeah. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, my first year in real estate, I closed 0 deals. My second year, I closed 1, and it was $88,000. And then my third year, I did $15 million. And it's because I was doing leases, and that's a true story. But I was making good money, and I was doing it. But I was a crumb guy. I would go do what no one else wanted to do. And all of a sudden, these people that had been leasing were like, "We want to buy our first home." I'm like, no way. I can do this. So
I see.
Yeah.
You did the leases,
Mhm.
and then they stayed with you,
Right.
and then it allowed you to start selling homes to them.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you shared that. On one hand, I'm really not. I'm being honest.
Okay. Fair. Nice meeting y'all. Yeah.
Because there are people going, this guy, by the way, the picture is a headshot. And it was so funny when Rogers walked in today and one of our staff said, you're taller than I thought you were.
And she said, you're skinnier in your photo. And I said, well, my egg whites must have had some extra salt. So,
But most definitely, there are people looking at you today, Rogers, and saying, oh, I know why he's successful. He's a nice looking man, da 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 da. But for you to say, my first year, basically nothing. My second year, 1 or 2. But then your third year, you just shot straight up.
yeah, and that's not normal. Like I've had people, for me, I think any full-time agent should do $5 million at a minimum. And that's based off when I was like actually mentally there. That was just something that I observed. But you can still make money. I was making 6 figures in college doing leasing, but I was like working ridiculous hours and I had to sacrifice a bunch. It was totally worth it. But some people do. You know, if you're a housewife and you've been a housewife for 18 years, then you're around people that are just your friend anyway.
And she used her center of influence.
Yeah,
exactly.
and it was hard for me to leverage my center of influence when they were living in a frat
You're a
house.
very driven person also. You're talking about being at SMU and then showing and leasing property. That's pretty incredible. So a very driven person. The questions that we have on the screen, and again, we have 2 questions that have come up. The first one that I'm looking at says, can you give us one lesson that you learned that helped you close your transaction?
Yeah. Ask for it. Ask for the close. And I think a lot of people go and either assume that they're going to get it or assume that they're not, and they wait. I'm not a waiter. I'm a very proactive person. I used to be a waiter. I'm not patient. And for me, I just learned, you know, over time just to be like, okay, what's it going to take? Like, let's do this right now. And for me, I lead with a sense of urgency. Like I mentioned, I just am always fearful that, you know, everything's going to fall apart. So I just learned when closing a deal, whether it's interviewing an agent that I think would be a good fit for my company or trying to get a transaction, be like, what's it going to take to do this right now? And I think by giving people that power, it just shows something different, whereas most people come with a binder, drop it off, and then do one of these things.
Do you know how many people just got really, really nervous right then?
Yeah.
To be able to feel comfortable, and yet we need to, but to be able to say to your buyers, what's it going to take?
Yeah.
Just repeat it again. Because here is someone that is very successful, but still knows when he's involved with buyers and sellers, with his buyers, or selling a property, that he literally has to say, what's it going to take to bring the deal together?
Yeah.
And so many people can't get those words out.
Yeah. And
they think it's too strong.
You know what? Like, someone else is going to get it. Yeah, someone else is going to get it. And I love being either the first or the last person there. And I love walking into a room or an agent coming to interview with us with a folder from a competing broker, or there's always like a binder on top of their fridge of another agency. I'm like, all right, let's go to work.
Very competitive.
Yeah, but it just like once you go to 1,000 homes, they all become the same. So you find a way to go make it different. And for me, it just becomes a different kind of game, a different kind of challenge.
Well, we have a whole new program going on now. And that is all these great questions from our audience.
Okay.
So it's like, sit down, buckle up, here we go. And, and the next question is, how do you deal with, I'm going to go 2 directions.
Yeah.
One is the seller that wants to discount your commission.
Right.
And the other is, on the other side, you're up against an agent whose only course of action is to discount what they're going to charge the seller.
So my answer back in the day used to be related to getting a haircut. And if I go to get a haircut and it's $10 and I tell the guy I want to give him $7, he's probably going to leave a piece of my hair uncut, or he's going to give me some kind of vanilla ice eyebrow. And then a few years ago, my office, this question came up, and a guy named Kevin Talley, who works for my firm, he's a brilliant salesperson, a great guy. Someone asked him, what do you do when someone says that I want you to cut your commission? And this is after you go through your whole rigmarole. This is my marketing plan, blah, blah, blah. His answer, I'll never forget this. He said, well, I asked him what part of the marketing they want me to remove. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so good. It was so good. So I think that you just.
That really was good.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, and it was great. And the guy's like, he's a savant. He's younger and has done this for a long time. But hearing that, I was like, that is so freaking good. And it was so sharp. But yeah, you just learn how to read it. But there are going to be some people that literally want discount commission no matter what. And in my experience, in my opinion, discount commission equals discount service. And you want me to give you 100% of me, and you're paying me 60% of what I'm worth, like, that's probably going to be a pass for me. So you just learn how to read it. And with that said, too, like, you don't have to take the deal. And back in the day, when I was starting off, I would rather have had two $500,000 buyers instead of $1 million buyer. They were going to turn quicker, probably going to be an easier deal, and they were going to sell quicker, like on the back end. So I learned this the hard way, which I was kind of a car salesman for it, but, you know, it led to something that was, you know, put me where I'm at today.
We have, but first of all, I want everyone to keep that mental picture, because we have hundreds of agents out there watching. That picture of the barber and the haircut. Mm-hmm. No, I only want to pay $7 for the haircut. Yeah. Keep that mental picture.
Yeah. This is a $10 haircut, by the way, in case you guys are wondering.
It's
yeah.
Trimmed all the way around.
Yeah.
We have another really good question from one of our students. It says, how do I go, so obviously new person in class, how do I go from a full-time paycheck to a commission?
Yeah.
What advice can you give this new person?
Don't rush. Okay. Right? One of the beauties of our business, and this might be not be the answer you want to hear, but when I started out, and even today when I'm showing properties, or when my team is showing properties, we're doing it when the other people are not working. So that means lunch, after hours, and weekends. And I think a lot of people think that you have to jump in this business full time, but in my opinion, you don't. And it's expensive. And if you've got stable income, like, keep stabilization. And I think for me, the most times where I've seen people work for me and then have to go back to doing something else are the ones that just did it because they wanted to. But this business is really, really hard, guys. And it's not a job, it's a career. So when you do jump, I wouldn't jump. Like on Instagram, you guys should follow like Champions, follow NAR. And yesterday they had a thing on the NAR statistics. And it was like 68% of people get into real estate because of the flexible hours. And I was kind of being a smart aleck, and I responded with 100% of them realized soon after that it's the least flexible hours ever. So you got to treat it like it's, you know, you're your own boss, loaded answer, but, you know, go when you're ready.
It's your career.
It's your career, and you got to have money saved up. But the problem is, like I was saying, you get a listing your first day on the job, and all of a sudden you're not taking photos with your camera. You have to pay someone to do it. And then you got to drive there to go take the photos taken. You got to buy lunch for the person who's going to do it.
Exactly.
You're living on credit, so just be financially comfortable.
There are just a lot of companies, unfortunately, when our new people are out interviewing, and many new companies say, I'm sorry, we have a policy that we don't take part-time people. But the answer to that as well is just keep searching, just keep looking.
Yeah.
Because if you are, obviously, Healy, who did that, started out with sort of in a part-time position, although I can't really see it was, because my gosh, you were in school, you were leasing, you were doing all of that, but the ship didn't come in until 3 years down the road.
Right.
But just
the closing ship. But
the closing ship.
I was financially stable, but I didn't know how to handle my finances, that's a whole nother.
Well, you were only in your early 20s, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We have another question. Let me see if I can read it up here. The market is really hot right now and will be for a few years. However, it won't be forever. How will you change your strategy when the market changes? Awesome question.
For me? So first thing I'll tell you guys to do, you should all go watch the movie The Big Short. Okay? When you watch that movie, you're probably going to be like fanning your armpits. I went through that. I started my company in March of 2007. 3 years later, I was like, what is going on? I just signed an office lease, and I had to make money. So I went back to the basics. I did what no one else was willing to do. We went from having 25,000 realtors to like 17,000 realtors in DFW in like 4 months. So I started doing leasing again, and I started getting in front of people. And the beauty of residential real estate, and we do commercial too, but the beauty of residential is everyone needs a place to live, everybody. And for me, once I got to a point of making a certain amount of money, I was, I refused to go and alter that. So, it's going to happen, right? And I think that the political term, he said, it's not going to last forever. How it's going to change, the market changes. The market never crashes in the mind of a realtor. It adjusts, right? So when the market adjusts, like, so do you, and you have to be agile. And you guys, this is such a crazy market right now, but I can tell you right now, the most fun I ever had was when the market was hard. And I learned how to be really, really good again. And I learned how to go and support my life based on hustle and just doing what no one else wanted to do. So learn every aspect of the game, and don't go and just try to do big deals, in my opinion.
I've gone through 3 cycles since opening my business many years ago. And I love it because the things you learn in a down market make you super successful in an up market.
Yep.
And when you said it was fun in the down market, it really is very challenging, and it takes you to a different place where it's almost a game to see how can you make sure that everybody has salaries and everything goes smoothly, but you cut in different areas.
Right.
And you cut in areas that aren't going to hurt you when the market turns around. But a few minutes ago, you talked about competitors that send out an email, not an email, but a mailer one time, and they don't keep after it. And the down market is really the time to really be as visible as possible and work hard, because when that up market happens, then you're at the top of the market.
Yeah, and that's when people come back in, and it's fun. And a lot of you guys, you're going to see this happen, but you can't quit. You cannot quit. And if you guys know what it's like to build a brand, it's super hard to build a brand, and it's super easy to lose your brand. And for me, I think I built my brand, like, my strongest time was when the market was difficult and when it was adjusting. But I realized that, as people started to fall off, here I was. And then when the market came back, all those people that pieced out coming back in. And by that time, my stage was bigger.
Because that was 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. And you were really building.
Yeah. And I never, I've always done better every year than I did the year before with individual production. And again, like, there's some years where I have 20 units sold, or somewhere I have 60 units sold, but it's like you find a way to do it.
You do, absolutely. That's when we decided to do the live broadcast.
Oh, cool.
It was We Can Hit, and we primarily did it for our appraisers. There are so few and far between now. They're sort of in the retirement mode of their careers, and not that many people come into the market to be an appraiser. And it was, well, if we can get appraisers all around the nation, then we can make classes work.
Yeah.
So that good idea came during a down market to get us prepared for when the market goes up.
That's interesting.
Here's another good question. This must be from...
Where do you get your suits and blazers?
Yeah, that was it. That's it right there. Where do you get them?
Trunk Club. My friend Taylor Dean at Trunk Club. Message me and I'll make the introduction.
Wow.
So, yeah, great question.
But I'm going to do something a little different here, because when we were talking, you told me that you had invested in a clothing company. Tell us the name of it.
Yeah, it's called Mizzen in Maine. The other investor for all you Houston people is J.J. Watt, but it's a company that is like moisture resistant material, like a dry fit. And,
or dresswear.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
Yeah, it's been really cool. And again, like, real estate afforded me the opportunity to take a risk, and now it's one of the fastest growing clothing companies.
Like dry fit.
Yeah, no, it's pretty awesome.
Especially if you can wear a tie with that dry fit
button
down collared shirt.
And especially if you're a sweater like me.
Commission is always the question. And another one that came up on the chat from our student was, how do you deal with someone who wants part of your commission? And I'm assuming it means that the buyer says, let me have part of it, or maybe an agent might say, I did part of your work, give me more of your commission. What do you think about that?
So let's talk black and white here. Get everything in writing, first of all. And I think if you can kind of play that card and says, listen, this is my job, like I don't have to give you anything, and like you go with it. But the beauty of what we do too, you guys all know this, is the only people that can take a percentage of a transaction is someone who's a licensed real estate agent or broker in your appropriate state in Texas. So for me, I just got really good at just saying like, no, like this is my job. And I also learned early on that the people that want to help you out, and the people who want to help me out kind of started to dwindle for a lot of reasons, but one of which is like they know exactly how much money I was making. And that was tough when you're a college kid and you make their first month's rent or 3%. There's kind of some resentment that builds. But for me, if someone wants to retain my commission, the first question is why? Why? Well, you only showed me one house. What was the right house? Right? And you only did this. And then all of a sudden, you start to find your canned answers, which makes sense. And you learn to deflect. And something for me that I've got good at is someone says, hey, you only showed me one house. I'm not going to pay you for 1 day of work. And I was like, you're paying me for 37 years of work. And I did this because you hired me to do the best job possible. And I just saved you time, which was worth a lot more money than what you're asking me for. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of the world we live in.
Well, let me springboard off that, because that was a great answer. And that because I have 37 years experience, I saved you time. You only had to look at that one house because it has all of your wants and needs. How do you reply to the seller? You list his house and wow, you get a buyer right away. Full price, over full price, and then you know the seller's going to say, we underpriced it. So how do you take care of that seller?
Bird in the hand. Bird in the hand. And by the way, like we don't decide the price, the seller decides the price. And by the way, seller, like you signed this listing agreement. And by the way, seller, like I showed you the comps because you hired me to show you the comps and then you chose the price. So, and I'm literal with this stuff, and it's hard. And you guys that are new to this business and this game, like that's a hard thing to master. And we teach our agents at our office, we'll go over listing agreements. We'll read it line by line. And literally there's stuff in here that the first time I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But you know, it's a contract, and it's a bilateral contract, and you perform. If they didn't perform, then that's a whole other animal. But yeah, and then the other thing too is intermediary deals, right? A lot of times people want to go and discount commission on intermediary. Why?
Exactly.
Why? You're paying me. Like I should get a bonus if I bring the buyer because that means that I'm literally the best at what I do. So you learn how to do these kind of scenarios, but at the end of the day, like the most intelligent clients will appreciate your approach and realize that like, hey, our house just sold in an hour because you literally are the best at what you do. Thank you.
I also think with your years of experience now, it helps you have the self-esteem to say those things.
Yeah.
When you're a new person, it's a little more difficult to be able to say, gosh, I brought the buyer to the table for your home. That's really difficult to do, but it's because I really searched high and low for a person that I knew would want all of what your house has to offer. But I think that when you're in the situation and these particular questions come up and you're a new person and you haven't been able to really pull from experience yet, go to that experienced agent and say, help me.
Yeah.
How do I reply back to this person that's saying, why should I pay you a full commission because you brought me the buyer and you have the listing? You should be getting a reduction.
Yeah.
And your statement, your comment was really perfect for that.
And I'm a real estate broker, but I'm a time broker. I'm a relationship broker, and I do a lot of things to help people out. And as you guys do this, like you wear multiple hats, but for me, like time is the only thing you cannot go and create. You cannot go add time to your life. And if I'm going to go and help people save time, like that's worth it, but it's going to happen. And it's crazy the times it's happened. It's a situation like you said, day one full price offer. Man, should have listed it for more. What? Take it. And it's cash, and they want to close next week. Take the money and run, Steve Miller Band. So yeah, I mean
take the money and run.
It's going to happen.
Look what I did for you.
Yeah.
We succeeded in a short time.
Yeah.
So tell me about buyer agency. Are you a 100% proponent of always getting the buyer representation form signed before you go out and show property?
100%.
Okay.
I can tell you, when I was trained, when I got to the business, the way I heard it is at the first face-to-face meeting, you bring them a brokerage services agreement.
Right.
right? And then if I'm with a buyer, I'm going to bring them a buyer rep. And what that does, it gives me security. And I can tell you that most of the times where people come in the office just like teary-eyed and hating the business, I'm like, what happened? I'm like, well, they bought a house without me. Buyer rep?
There you go.
Lesson learned.
And I love that. And that little clip, I'm telling all of our students, you need to listen to that over and over again, because there are two things Roger said in the last 5 minutes that are huge. And that was one, did you get assigned by a rep? And the other was a few minutes ago when you said, the seller decides at what price to sell and list his property.
Yeah.
And you help that seller come to that determination, but it's the seller who ultimately makes the decision.
Yeah.
And I loved it that you said that, because that's something we try to hone in when we're teaching listings and how to put a listing together.
Yeah, and for what it's worth too, just some help here. If a seller ever says, what should I list the house for? The answer is like, it's not my house. Okay, like I'm a real estate consultant, I'm a real estate agent, I'm a realtor, but like you're the homeowner. But yeah, that is something that comes up, and it's a really uncomfortable situation. Be like, well, what would you list it for? I don't know.
Do you still go out on your own listing appointments?
Yes, I do. And I mean, it's the deals I do with my personal team. It's a little bit different, but it's uncomfortable sometimes. And the homeowners too, guys. We live in an era where they think that they're a realtor. Most of them aren't. But the problem with a lot of these technology, applications and websites is they can go on there. It's going to give them a number that is not accurate. But yeah, it happens. But your job is to lead a horse to water. You cannot shove their head in there and make them drink. They got to drink. If they don't want to drink, go to another horse.
Perfect.
I just made that up.
You do a lot of visuals.
Yeah.
And visuals allow people to really remember information.
Yeah.
Good job. We are coming up to the end of our session today.
Don't say that.
We are.
Don't say that.
Half of these people will be going on a break, and then they'll come back to class time. The others, of course, are our students that found out about our wonderful interview today with Rogers Healy of Rogers Healy and Associates. I think you are most definitely a professional that we should all be proud of.
Thanks.
I am happy that he's in our school from time to time, sponsoring lunch or breakfast to our students. And just to show you, again, getting back to the industry, he's very busy, very successful company. And yet he takes the time to come in and talk to our students about their new careers in real estate. We invite all companies, as everyone knows, to do that. It's in the students' off time, but it's a win-win for everyone. They want to hear, how did you become so darn successful? And it always gives everyone that wonderful sense that maybe I can do it too. Maybe I can make my life better for myself and my family. So any final words to our group out there?
Something I always end with when I go and do these lunches at Champions is I say, learn how to pray and learn how to give thanks. And I think that if you take that mindset in this business and you can leverage that, then the mental part of it becomes really, really easy. And yeah, this business is a lot of fun. I've been really blessed, and I've met some awesome people through it, and I've had some cool opportunities. But, there's stuff that I can never be prepared for. And if I can go and digest the not fun parts the same way I digest the fun parts, and I can kind of bank my emotions, then it just helps me have staying power. So yeah, you guys that are watching this is really great. I'm really honored to be included. But
we're honored to have you.
Yeah, but just put in the time and have fun with it, and realize that there's always something you can be doing to better yourself in this business. Always. And as soon as you grasp that, I can promise you're going to do well.
Wonderful words.
Yeah.
And I know that clip will be repeated over and over again. If you want to see our interview again, it will be posted on YouTube, probably by 4 o'clock this afternoon. And I know a lot of our students that are in QE class, they couldn't join us because they had to be in their structured environment today, but they all said, when will it be on YouTube? We want to see the interview with Rogers Healy. You are our champion superstar, and we're just so happy to be able to claim you.
Thank
and the
you.
fact that you did make all A's really makes us look good. So
Thank you.
thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thanks for being here today. And again, January the 7th, we have Dr. Gaines that will be here giving us our economic outlook for 2018. So if not before then, we'll see you January the 7th. And again, thank you, Roger Healy, for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for being a champion.